And this seems like Arabia. So yep, that's kind of standard setup, islands in Arabia. It usually happens here. And looking at the civilizations, we have Tatoh as Mongol, Setito, which is a replacement of Cambridge from first game, as Mayan, and Lemur O2, that's yet another replacement. Well, who was the last player from ByT? Maybe someone can help me in the chat actually, because I don't really remember, sorry about that. But he is playing Hans and Monaimon is Persian. From Fox we have Ivan as Spanish, Menotti as Mayan and Mahori as Han, with Refen finishing as Mongol. So is this yet another perfect mirror? I think I seem this right. Oh no, this is a difference. Persians and Spanish. Okay, that's kind of standard, and it seems like more like a personal preference because both civilizations are pretty great on this kind of map. You can see that the first player that we have a look at is Tatoh as the host of the room, is spawned very close to the wall of the map, which is usually not that ideal because it often means that you actually have no place to retreat to. But so far, as it is, for Tatoh, it shouldn't really be all that much of a problem because we will be expecting him to go for the heavy offensive. He has already scouted his boar and also some extra mine of the stone at the very forefront, with having the deer quite curiously close to the berries, which will probably result in a mill about here, so that he can actually take care of those deers from the same spot and doesn't actually have to waste time trying to lure them in with the scout here. Extra gold on the left, and otherwise really not really bad placement for him overall, with the extra boar on the left as well, and also yet again something extra, and that's a hunt here. Let's switch into the next one. That's going to be Lemur here. Lemur. Lemur. Okay, so right now we are looking at you. You are very close to your ally Purple. You can see that he already knows where he actually is, having the boars very nicely scouted quite easily, so that he doesn't have any kind of downtime in the very early food gathering, and he is going for a tree line at the very back, so he doesn't want to potentially get rid of those very nice ones in the middle, because I really think this will be very easy for him to potentially put a wall here, and yeah, this is not really something insurmountable, especially when we are at Arabia. This is one of the not bad ones that you actually can make with your walling attempts. So yep, this is something that can be actually helpful for him in the early game. And let's switch into, for example, Monaimon. The next player already butchering the first boar, seeing the relic, extra gold between him and his teammate, and also seeing some extra gold of his own at the very back, and having a generally pretty great placement of the stone mine here. And whereas the gold in the forefront, yeah, that's not really all that safe, especially I don't like the hill here. That's going to be quite easily abusable by archers, because they will, and that's a pretty steep hill on top of that. So potentially if you put archers here, radiant archers, this is basically going to deny any kind of gold gathering from this, and might be slightly problematic for Moraimon to defend. So definitely has to be careful about this and potentially start walling pretty soon, or at least make some attempt at controlling this hill. Otherwise this might escalate into something that he won't be all that happy about. Going for a second boar, and in the meantime let's switch into the last player with looking at the back hunt from ByT. That's going to be Setito on the other flank of the map. Also already butchering one of those pigs. Where's the second one? Does he see it somewhere? He sees a hunt here. That's the second one also. That's basically the same as it was spawned for Tatoh here. Very close to the hunt here, and well, this is as unsafe gold as it goes, because this map is pretty open overall, and I don't really see the second boar unless he already killed it, which I don't think he has. Ah, here's the second one. It's actually been stolen. Oh, let's switch over to Fog of War. And Mahori actually having having fun with him and trying to steal the boar. And can he actually succeed? I kinda think so, because the villager is obviously quite slow. And where is actually the scout from Red here? So he will be trying to disrupt this, and let's see if he can succeed. Can he? He's moving in the right direction. And this is engagement here. Come on, stop the aggro. Oh, well, that didn't work out. That didn't work out, and right now this is going to take yet another attempt. And we are getting close to actually yellow base. So it will be needing to be somewhere around here before it actually gets too close, and it will be killed by some of the villagers from yellow. So clicking up into the feudal ages right now, both Refen and Tatoh, they are probably playing the absolutely same strategy, 19 villagers, or yeah, for both. And since they are both Mongols, yeah, they are doing exactly the same thing. And the aggro has been stopped, so pretty good job. And right now it will be Red who will be attempting to actually go back. But looking how far away it actually is, he might be having a bit of a problem because this villager will be receiving quite a decent amount of damage. And even though he might not steal the boar, which has yet again stopped. Come on, use the scout. Use the scout, please. Don't use the villager. Yeah, because he's kind of too slow and will be yet again abusable by this. So this is quite a lot of action at the very beginning, with Grey also making an appearance here from Fox, and Menotti together with Mahori are trying all they can actually to steal this boar, but so far that's not going to be successful. So that was safe at the very last moment, and will be a boar for Red, because yeah, you can see that he has just finished with his sheep here, or just he was about to finish, and this is pretty crucial for the early game for him. Also, you can see that he's going for a dash, but let's switch somewhere else. We see a bit of a flare here. That's basically just Tatok saying that he wants him to finish the wall here, probably, onto the Lemur player. So yeah, that's that. And looking on the right side, for example, do we see some dashing for someone else? Not much so far then. But we also see a lot of walling from the green player. But that's pretty much it, it seems. Also walling from the gray. Right now being scouted by orange, but it seems like that's pretty much it. Yeah, you can see right now that there was a bit of a dash also from the yellow one, from the yellow player. So basically dash versus a dash, and it seems like definitely going for red, and that means Setito and ByT. And Mahari's attempt at stealing the boar is right now not paying enough dividends as he definitely hoped at the very beginning. So goodbye, Militia Raid. That's Drash right now stopped in its very early steps. That's pretty much it, and Red will be very free to go with his own two militias together with potentially the scout from Moraimon to harass some kind of wood line here. Yeah, it's very open, and maybe even the goat line here on the very back of his base, because obviously Yellow's base is so hugely open around here that he literally cannot make any kind of wall here. He will be very open, and will probably be having some kind of troubles defending very early on. Yeah, this is not what you want to do with the militias, but right now he's moving, and is he going to choose the tree line? Well, building some palisade was actually trying to defend, and yeah, going for the food is much better, but they will be potentially in range of the TC. Let's see about that. But right now he's at least luring exactly the villagers to not gather, which is exactly the purpose of the militia rush. So yep, that's that. We'll be seeing quite a lot of that here as well, but looking somewhere else on the map, some different colored patches, not much. Not much, just everybody advancing into the feudal age right now. And somewhere else, oh well, here we see the scout raiden, finally, from Refen, who has been able to build his first stable at this point, and well, he will be attempting to maybe raid Tatoch, but looking how Tatoch is right now just finishing the wall here quite nicely, just one tile by one, and I don't see any kind of way through. That potentially could be on the left, but looking how he's having enough scouts himself together with the spearman, he should be finishing without any kind of problem. And yes, this is reasonably wallable map for him, and he will be possibly advancing into pretty fast castle age. I'm going to switch into Tatoch to actually have some kind of look into his gameplay. Right now 300, so not really anything all that fast, but he's also not building any extra army, so he will be probably switching into the castle age pretty soon. Because obviously, as a Mongol, you want to advance into Imperial Age in some reasonable time. But somehow Til has found his way through, because the falling is not finished from the orange player, and right now this is going to be a lot of a problem. A lot of problems for Orange, because obviously he doesn't have the army yet as a Han, even though he's advancing into castle, so knights will be there pretty soon. But right now he will be probably forced either of gold or of the food. Well, both are pretty crucial for obviously building knights, so not ideal at all, and a bit of a problem for the orange player. Yeah, that's pretty substantial raiding, but the same has to be said about the attempt of Tatoch on the right side of the map, where he is facing some spearmen from the teal player. But Teal seems to be having pretty decent amount of army himself to defend against that, so no, that's not going to be anything useful for Tatoch, and the amount of defense of the green player basically tells you everything what you need to know, as that he is going to be advancing into Castle Age without any kind of problems and shouldn't be facing any kind of troubles from the potential raiding of Tatoch. Red is also trying to finish a wall, so it seems like we are basically looking at ByT is trying to build some kind of Great Wall of China all around their bases, with just Blue not really cooperating. Yeah, he's literally doing nothing for the wall, but otherwise all three of the remaining players are attempting to do exactly that, using buildings very nicely, and with Stetito advancing into Castle Age, he could be pretty threatening as a Mayan. Let's switch into him, how many archers he's actually hiding in there. Yeah, quite a lot of them, so that's going to be quite decent crossbowmen raiding pretty soon. And let's have a look. How's it looking in orange base? Well, he is still forced rather off gathering. See quite a lot of idols in there hidden inside the main TC, which is not really ideal, especially when he is the one as a hunt that should be producing a lot of knights. Let's switch into Lemur, and yeah, you can see that he's definitely very low on resources, and he definitely hoped that he would be slightly more, that he would be having slightly more for the knights and defense of all his villagers. Right now, the knight, even one should be pretty much enough against those, yeah, pretty much dead scout cavalry, so that shouldn't be any kind of problem for him. And developing second TC, and yep, that's pretty much it. So let's have a look at the right side, where Tatok has finally found some targets for his raiding. And how did he actually manage that? Oh, because there's actually a way through here, which I kind of think that Foxes actually didn't know about or overlooked somehow. So that's right now not looking all that well, rather good for them. Castle being dropped by the Mayan player from Fox, which is being placed at, I would have to say, slightly curious place. He's just trying to protect what he has in the middle, or rather, basically he's trying to prevent potential income route from his opponent. So that's that, but unfortunately he is already reached from the right side, so he needs to defend that as well, and he will be disrupted basically similarly to the orange player. Orange right now is basically safe with those knights, just as we have seen. He doesn't need to worry about that at all. And looking somewhere else, red is almost into the castle age, as is Fox Ivan, and we will be seeing the deployment of those crossbowmen once they are researched pretty soon. Blue at this point is just booming as a Persian, going for the second TC, and I'm just going to have a look for the achievements if maybe someone is slinging. No, we don't see anything like that, and that means that we'll be just waiting for the guys to return back from the pause and continue with the game then. Yeah, Teal is having quite a lot of defensive placements here with those spearmen against the potential raiding from Tatoch, disrupting that quite nicely, and also finishing the wall very nicely indeed with those houses here, using them besides the walls. So unpause is here, and we will be switching some kind of proper battles very soon. So yep, this is basically the only one that is happening so far, or at this point, with Setito yet again clicking into the crossbowman, and it's yet another pause. Bit of a lag in here. Hopefully it starts running as well as it should. I'm going to have a look into the room if maybe some problem is happening in the game itself. Everybody seems to be in, so I don't really see anybody dropped or whatever. So it's just some kind of, I don't know, weird pauses or whatever. But all we can say at this point is that this villager from Grey is already dead, and since we don't have really anything to talk about, let's have a look at the villagers, where we see that Lemur is at 27, which is by far the least of all the players, but really, it's not really all that huge gap that he couldn't overcome, so yeah, nothing to be all that worried about at this point, I would say, especially looking how Tatoch is the leading guy with the 33 villagers, whereas the best from Fox is 32. Hey, Assamite in the chat. And looking somewhere else, for example, at yellow, and well, we still see a militia here. Oh, that's interesting. That's quite interesting that he's still surviving 18 minutes into the game. And is he doing anything substantial? I don't really see him doing anything at all. So he's maybe just standing there, and that's pretty much it. And he seems to be quite content. And oh, this is important. This is important because Blue is actually sending knights right from his home base into the raiding. of yellow player, but yellow is already prepared for this and is also having quite a decent amount of cavalry archers as a Han. That's obviously a unit of choice for you if you want to go for that, but he will be probably switching into knights as he advances into Imperial, but so far in Castle Age that's a pretty good unit, especially in the hands of a skilled player like Mahori obviously is. And this is a pretty nice attempt by the blue. By the blue, and well, let's turn off the chat so that it doesn't actually spoil anything for us. Looking around the map, not much interesting stuff happening anywhere really. Just really the second TC from the just advanced into Castle Age Persian player. That's pretty much it for him. For Orange, we are going to be seeing second TC pretty soon. Yeah, right now at the very top as well. And are we returning back into the game? It could just be that case. But also not. And looking, for example, into Tatok's base, we can see that he's having a defense here by the Spearman, but does he really need that? He's having quite nicely walled from the right side, there's absolutely no problem for him with that, but he's potentially vulnerable from the right side or the left side through Cambridge's base, or rather Cambridge. Yeah, it's because Cambridge was orange in the last game, and that was an hour-long game, so I kinda got used to the fact that he was actually the orange, and right now I will have to switch into remembering that it's actually Lemmer O2 at this point. Those scouts are pretty much dead when one of those knights actually encounters them. And looking right now at the opponents, and that's for example Refen at this point, is he building his second TC somewhere as well? Well, of course not, because he's still in feudal age, and it seems like that he's not really even advancing. Let's switch into Refen, and yeah, we are fully in, as unpause has happened, and we are back into the full action. So he is having a pretty decent amount of resources, so it's just a question of time for him to advance into the castle age as well. And looking somewhere else for the green player who is already in, and he will be probably hoping for a second and third TCs, yeah, right there, exactly, and we'll be seeing where the blue player is actually going to continue with the raid in. So far it seems like that he's actually not going for yellow, but switching on the grey player, which was a decent idea before actually the castle went up, and right now the second TC. And I kinda think that this is way too late, because obviously now there is not going to be anything substantial to raid for these players. So that's that. And it seems like that Blue actually recognized exactly that. Maybe Tatok told him. Well, I would kinda expect that he did. Have a nice lag. And right now he's going slightly back, and he could have actually taken a bit of a shot at these villagers, but not really anymore. And here we are saving, and we will be probably restoring because of the luck then. Okay, everybody's out of the game room, so with this part in image, let's have a look at the achievements in the mid game, with Fox Ivan so far being the best of them all. Yeah, not much really interesting stuff, just that Monaimon was advancing the fastest into Castle Age, whereas Refen was the fastest into Feudal, just 2 seconds before Tatoch. And yep, let's just wait for the restore of the game then. Yep, and we are in, and we are looking how Tatoch is actually getting away from this kind of raiding that he had here, and it was kind of successful because he did kill 2 wheelies, as you can see, but that's pretty much it, and right now he's forced to go somewhere else, which is at this point the green player. Green is having some kind of free wheelies potentially in here, as he's also trying to cut through the tree line there, or trying. His villagers are trying, and he's not really all that happy about that, but otherwise the resources like gold and stone are pretty much safe for him because of the extra TCs already finished. What's happening here with Blue is that he's actually going to be helped by Setito, who is dropping yet another TC and also the Siege Workshop, so that's going to be quite interesting, especially well, since it's a Mayan, it's kind of understandable that he will be joining with some Siege Gems pretty soon. Well, he will have to advance into Imperial Age first though. I'm also going to turn off the chat here again, as there's like 20 people in spectating here. Yeah, it would be pretty great if they were actually watching the stream, but anyway, each to his own, and we will be continuing with the Raiden, or, well, this is not much of a Raiden, as full-on attack by those crossbowmen together with the knights here, and looking how yellow is having just some amount of cavalry archers, or just some amount, that's actually a pretty decent amount, that should be able to actually micro his opponents' armies, but not if they are on this hill. Yep, and that's basically a signal for Mahori to run away, because once they are in power of this hill, this is pretty much it, they are toast. Grey seems to be basically attempting to do the same thing as will be yellow, so these two hills will be quite interesting to see. This is just going to end in both of those teams basically trying to capture one of those hills and waiting for their opponents to make a mistake, but probably not for long, because yellow is right now in Castle Age and trying to secure the gold with the town center, which is a pretty decent idea, as he definitely needs to do that. We see a bit of green in Orange's base, so that's a bit of knights, so basically both pockets fighting each other. With the extra armies that are actually the correct ones for them, and we heard some camel here. We heard a camel being built, but it was probably by Tatok, because yeah, we are clicking to him, so we will hear exactly the sounds from him. So let's see where it is actually happening. Not here, that's just those scouts still. And yeah, here we see the camels, and they are actually coming in to help his orange teammate, and this is definitely going to be needed, because otherwise green would be having just a free reign of the base overall. I'm still very curious. Oh well, not anymore. Yeah, you could see there was a hole in the wall a bit earlier, which is finally being plugged shut, and same could be said about the kind of wall on the left. It seems like that there might have actually been some kind of way through, but not anymore, and orange should be quite safe, especially with the help from the camels of Tatoch to engage with this army and defend himself as much as he can. So yep, this is a pretty good job on the defense, so let's switch to the south battlefield, but that seems to be a bit more important for the whole direction of the game, because those crossbowmen are in pretty large numbers, and with the mangonels from the siege workshop of the red, this is going to be quite interesting if they can properly micro into all those plumed archers and cavalry archers from their opponents. So that's that. Some Botkin arrow being researched by the Mayan player, and can they make proper use of the hill? Yet again, this is a pretty big advantage for them, and yeah, you can see that the teal, or rather grey player, is already moving onto the next hill, so yet again, that's a situation exactly the same as here, right now, on this spot. So I'm kinda thinking that red should be attempting to maybe build a castle here, to potentially disrupt the attempts of their opponents to really gain some kind of advantage upon them. So yep, that's not happening so far though, and the army is pretty large at this point with those two mangonels and a way through. This is a pretty huge threat for the yellow base overall, even though the army is not really half bad. Looking at some kind of raid in here still, those palisades are not really going to carry it, so I'm kind of thinking that orange should be switching into normal stone wall about here, because this is literally just an open way into his base, or he should just finish between those buildings, because yeah, those buildings are tanky enough, and if he can secure this part of the map, he will be very free to boom as he can into Imperial Age and the Cavaliers, and of course the Paladins right after. So looking at the important battle in here, oh, it seems like a trap. This seems like Admiral Akbar's place to actually call his famous quote, but it's not really shutting down on them so far, as they are really taking it carefully. They literally want to basically prevent any kind of reinforcements, so they ran on the hill and defeated the army there, but those two mangonels could get in some pretty good shots if they are microed properly. So this was a pretty good shot by the crossbowmen, not the mangonels. And all those knights here, well, they are kind of pretty good mind shield, mid shield for all this army from the red, and red is basically the one that is setting the pace of the game so far at the south battlefield here, because, oh well, this is kinda risky. This kinda risky with blue being so far away from red, so that could develop into something they wouldn't want, and blue definitely has to be a bit more careful with what he's doing with his army, because he needs to protect his red ally. Otherwise, in Korinji's base there's still a bit of raiding by, who is it? By green player, by RFN. That's actually teal player, sorry about that. And well, it seems like that Lemmer is still not really about finishing his wall. He's not really taking that carefully enough, and he's just letting his opponent's horses run in a rampant through his base, which is not ideal, as he needs to be the one booming and getting all the extra resources into the Hunt Paladins in the Imperial Age. Right now going for gold mining at least, and having 69 wheels. Well, that's not bad compared to other allies or opponents, so not really anything substantial going on for him, but still he could be helping a bit more on his allies' attempts. On the south battlefield though, there is a pretty huge battle with 3 mangonels, and so far it seems like that yellow is outmaneuvering his opponent together with those plumes, and oh well, yeah, he's going to lose the mangonels. They are not... Oh well, yeah, that was a pretty damn good shot into the tightly packed plumed archers, and they are like half dead right now. So that was a very important one. Even though he has lost all 3, this was a very good one. Literally, they will be so easy to pick off by either the horses or the crossbowmen themselves that they are just as well not being there. So I'm not exactly sure why Blue together with Red aren't recognizing this huge opportunity, because they could be just slaughtering them as exactly as they are. Yeah, you can see that's so fast that it's actually freaky scary for Grey at this point, I would have to guess. And the armies are pretty strong with players advancing into Imperial Age, and that's Refan with Tatoch. Okay, that's the right side of the battle, where we see a bit of a mixed colors here between Tatoch still having the scout cavalry from the early raiding here, and also Teal having some kind of pikemen or other spearmen entering the base here, because Tatoch is trying to build a second row of walls to actually improve his map control and to be much closer to his opponent. That's basically at his doorstep. And since they are facing a Mongol, well, they are Mongol mirror right there in 1v1, this is probably going to be quite interesting battle between Tatoch and his opponent. Yeah, Tatoch also advancing into Imperial Age, so it's going to be pretty much the same from them. And looking at the south is definitely in ByT's power quite substantially, because Mahori together with Menotti are not able to defend against this at all, as they are not killing any army from Red literally whatsoever. They are literally not killing anything, and we are just waiting for the Imperial Age from Monaimon, and the cavalry is coming in, and then I'm not exactly sure what the Grey together with Yellow player are hoping to achieve. At least we see that Grey is advancing into Imperial Age, which will potentially mean a switch for the Mayan player into Eagle Warriors, or rather Halberdiers against those Paladins, as he should be well aware of what is going to happen pretty soon here. Yeah, you can see he's already dropping at least 1 barracks, but I'm kinda thinking there's going to be quite a lot of them more very soon indeed. But before any of that happens, Red is actually dropping a castle right in the middle of the yellow base, which is going to be quite important, because if he can finish... Where are actually the villagers? Where are they? I don't see them. And, oh, they are going from here. That was, well, that was some kind of long road. But still, pretty decent amount, and I'm kinda thinking they're not going to face... Oh well, scratch that, because this switch into knights from the yellow player is actually going to be pretty crucial, because there's not anything that Red can do about, because Blue was somewhere else, and right now this is going to disrupt the attempt to actually build the castle quite substantially. Obviously, those crossbowmen are fighting quite tanky knights at this point, and they are, yeah, in a kind of bad spot. But looking how Blue actually got into the fight at the right moment, he's going to save the battle and allow Red to finish the castle without too much actual trouble. So yep, even though it looked like all kinds of problems for the ByTs, it's not really going to develop into one now. So castle will be finished. And we will be seeing Imperial Age and Cavaliers from Blue pretty soon. And this might be the game turn exactly how ByTs are waiting for. Rather, exactly the game turn that ByTs are waiting for. So castle finished. That's a bit of a problem for him, or rather for the Foxes, because obviously they are right now facing a bit of a trouble, as both the Red and Blue have some place to actually retreat to and potentially get away from those pesky archers and even the knights from their opponents. Looking at the right battlefield, it seems like that Ivan is actually finally joining in the fight somewhere substantially, because we haven't seen his presence for some time. And you can also see that Refan is building second castle, which is obviously the play, as he is a Mongol and switching into the Mangudais. Looking at Tatoch, he's already having a pretty decent amount of them with 3 castles, which is a lot better than his opponent, and he's having 1, 2, 3 TCs, very nice. Yeah, 3 TCs, very nicely booming overall, rather 4. yeah, sorry, correct that, 4 DCs, which is a pretty huge boom for him. And even though some of those knights got through, yeah, through this hole in the wall, which is not going to be continuing anymore. Yeah, and they are right now just caught in a trap and will be dying to the castle fire and also the Mangudai fire. So even though it looked like a pretty good idea to run through, it's not going to be one in the end. Moving back to the south battlefield, we see we are not really moving anywhere all that fast. A bit of an attempt at raiding by Lemur, but not really finding any kind of opponents. But what is much more important is this attempt at raiding by the Cavaliers from blue and the crossbowmen from red, because they are encountering quite a decent army, and those Cavaliers are doing their job as the meat shield. But looking how fast they are actually dying to those plumed archers. Yeah, this is a battle that actually ByT did not want to take. I'm kinda afraid that this is basically toast. Yeah, even though he's trying to retreat, that's not going to help him, because obviously they're just going to kill them quite easily. Oh, please don't do that. Please don't send those units in there. Wait a bit, send them under the castle and gather all those crossbowmen into one army, and this is going to be a pretty important one very soon. Quite nice defensive castle from Grey though, on the very hill here. So yeah, this is going to help quite immensely in the defense of this town center, which is pretty crucial because of the huge amount of farms for the yellow player, who needs all that he can achieve, because obviously he is hoping for the knights of his own as a Hun. On the top battlefield, we see that Tato is basically just waiting for the correct time to finally go into full offensive on his opponent. Right now also going for onagers. That's going to be the siege unit of choice apparently. And looking at the low amount of Mangudais for his opponent, this is going to be a pretty nasty surprise. Even though castle is finished, it's not going to really do all that much. Not all that much overall. Otherwise, though, it's not like Fox Refan is actually going to lose this or whatever. You can also see Paladins from the blue player, which is also going to be quite important. And they are right now just scaring their opponents out of their skins, because, yep, once Paladins are joining the battlefield, it usually means that you are in knee-deep trouble if you don't have any kind of Paladins of your own. So yeah, this is it. And what's also interesting to see is Green trying to send some Paladins into the middle, potentially hoping that he can find some kind of hole and something to raid. And that's that. And also Cambridge, or no, it's not Cambridge, it's Lemur, sorry, yet again. It's Lemur having a pretty decent army at this point and advancing into Imperial Age for Paladins of his own pretty soon. Looking at the bottom battlefield, we see that trebuchets are finally in, which is a bit of a problem for Red because he doesn't have his own. Looking how he's still in Castle Age, obviously, but he does have some kind of veteran rams, which could be just enough, especially with the Paladins from the blue player. And I kind of think it would be slightly better if those archers weren't shooting at farms, actually. Hopefully he will rectify that soon. But still, they are shooting at all the interesting places, like the farms, and not exactly the units, which is slightly weird, but, well, each to his own, and it seems to be working anyway, so not really all that much of a problem. Right now, those veteran rams are going to be pretty good meat shields for potentially the plumed archers, which is going to absorb quite a lot of damage. But looking how actually plumed archers are not dying and are in pretty huge numbers, I would be getting slightly scared, as they are elite, and he is in the Imperial Age, the Mayan from Fox. We see also Lemur paying a bit of a stone for Tatoch for extra castle. That's a good idea as a Mongol. And are we going to see this castle dropped? Well, even if it does, there's yet another castle going up right now for purple, or rather for grey. And I kind of thinking that red, together with blue, will have to take this slightly slower, and they will need the trebuchets to take down this castle, because it's not going to work with just battering rams. And yes, this Mayan player definitely needs to advance into the next age, into the Imperial Age. It seems like that green player has actually found his way into the base of orange yet again. So orange is yet again raided some pretty substantially at this point, and he's losing villages. He's right now at 139, so he's not really going to mind all that much, but still, he shouldn't really let this happen, especially when trade route is right now being threatened, so it's not ideal at all. And he's basically inviting green in, right now deleting some of the walls here, and he should be doing a lot more of actually defending than this. Especially when green is right now running rampant through blue base as well, which is not really something that ByT's won. At the top side we see a pretty huge battle between Right now Ivan, Refen and Tatoch is facing two opponents and being just one, which is not ideal or that much. Well, he's not alone. He is finally having some help from Cavaliers, from Lemur, so that's at least that, but still it seems like that Foxes are having slightly better cooperation here and are the ones pushing through. Even though we see a pretty decent amount of castles, and this one is pretty important because Tatoch is right now able to secure this very important gold for himself, which is exactly what he needs. Though 4 castles and quite a lot of siege workshops, we are going to switch into Refen to see what he's actually building. So far nothing, but yeah, you can see that he's going for cap trams, so there's going to be siege rams pretty soon, and that might be slightly problematic because they are quite deadly, as obviously from the Mongolian player they have all the bonuses in there. They finally some attempt to get in through this pretty strong wall of defense of the opponents, and we also see a pretty decent amount of paladins in the middle of the map moving somewhere else, and they are potentially hoping that they can actually help Tatoch in here in the battle together with Lemur. Okay, so we'll see about it pretty soon. And somewhere else, something interesting, not much, just some kind of idle trade guys at the bottom. Well, there's some kind of attempt at actually trading from Foxes, but it's kinda gutsy and also a pretty terrible spot because obviously because of those 3 lines here, it's going to be quite densely packed and will be quite cluttery very soon. Imperial Age for Setito almost in, and in the middle, do we see something interesting? Well, just the castle has been dropped, so it seems like that Grey Menotti is doing a pretty great job defending against the onslaught here, and he is maybe trying to push his opponent slightly back, and that's basically a result of the H advantage of the Fox players. But that's not going to be true for much longer, as Imperial Age is setting in for Setito as one of the last players in the Steel Castle Age. So it could be said about the guy in yellow. But yellow is also switching into important pikemen, and really this amount of tool touches is damn scary because once they are massed to this kind of numbers, they are kinda undefeatable unless you have some pretty good shots with mangonels or rather onagers in this case. So yep, this is developing into something pretty scary for ByT at this point, and we have, or rather they have to hope that they can actually push through the battle at the very top, where Blue has joined in but has almost lost everything at this point. But it seems like that it's pretty strong at this point because those 3 trebuchets together with siege onagers, well, not siege onagers yet, normal onagers so far, they are doing a pretty good job of getting rid of the castles because they have already killed one and the second one will be down in just a matter of moments. And yeah, but he still needs some extra help, and definitely Orange could be helping a bit more. So far he, or others, pretty soon he will be because he's advancing, upgrading into Paladins. So once that happens, I'm kinda thinking this will be a pretty equal battle, and the better players, or rather better teamwork, will be shining through, and I'm fully expecting that to be going for Birasita Pass. So far Tatoch seems to be doing a pretty good job by himself, and Tila is trying to protect the castle as much as he can, because obviously if he can't, he won't be having any of them to build his pretty precious and super strong Mangurais in there. Not really anything going from the right side. Anything on the minimap that would be worth it? Not really. I don't really see anything all that much important for either of the sides, just that on the bottom battlefield we are finally finding some elite bloom archers from the Mayan of the Birasita Pass, and that could be exactly the type of unit that will turn the battle around. Right now blue is sending quite a lot of paladins basically to their death, but slowly but surely they are pushing through because yellow is not having any kind of presence here at all. You can see that he's right now having just a bit of a light cavalry, that's not really enough. Looking how he is at 129 release, that's slightly surprising, but once he is in Imperial Age, he will be switching into Cavaliers with Paladins pretty soon, I would guess. Going to see if he's having enough resources. Well, absolutely not. Actually, absolutely not. He doesn't have the resources even for the Cavaliers. That's going to be a stretch for him. And this will definitely open the window of opportunity for red together with blue to push through, because, yep, this is exactly what they need. That's their opponent not having the same kind of power as they are. Oh well, let's just scratch that. Menotti has paid quite a good tribute actually to him. So that means that Mahori will be having enough resources for Cavaliers and also Paladins pretty soon right after that. Okay, so this will be just a critical like 2-3 minutes for them before that happens, as we will be seeing Knights already trickling in for Mahori. Yeah, exactly that happening. But Blue is all over the trade route, which is pretty threatening at this point to the whole Fox team, as without trade route they will be in all kinds of troubles. And it won't be really all that nice for them. Quite a decent amount of them really. And it's not like those plumed archers can actually get rid of them in some kind of fast manner. They can just run away from them and harass the army somewhere else, and especially with the huge amount of paladins trickling in as reinforcements from blue. Yep, it's going to be a pretty strong attack indeed. So yet another castle has fallen for the teal player, who is right now down to just 2 castles. Are we right? Yes, we are right. He doesn't have extra stone for extra castles. That's in the middle. He actually has a castle in the middle, so that's a new one. With also Blue having some kind of siege workshops here, so he's potentially hoping as a Persian to join in the fun with some siege workshops of his own, and that could be pretty important for pushing off the teal player from the gold here. At this point though, it seems like that Ivan together with Refan are actually waiting for the right moment for the battle, and well, let's hope for them that it's actually not going to be too late, because the Mongol losing all those castles, which he is right now losing pretty convincingly, is not voting anything nice for him, because without those Mangurais as the super strong unit, and especially a unit that he has spent quite a lot of resources into, is not really something that you want to be as a Mongolian player, because obviously this is a unit that you want to use against all those onagers and also the trebuchets to defend. And overall, they are pretty strong cavalry archers even against those paladins if microed properly. But this is a pretty strong push by both Tatoch and his ally Lemur O2, and they are pretty strong indeed at this point. And well, seems like very decisive push at this point. Siege workshops from the teal player, but looking at the bottom battlefield, how's it looking here? Well, finally the Imperial Age is paying dividends with siege rams from Sepito, absorbing quite a lot of damage from those archers, but they have to be careful, because obviously those pikemen are doing a pretty good job against those paladins, and you can see that they are not really surviving all that much long, and they are not working as the meat shield that they would be hoping. So we would definitely need a bit more siege, and I would be hoping that actually Blue or Red actually switch into trebuchets pretty soon, because they need to get rid of them. They are fighting uphill plumed archers, which is a huge battle bonus for them, and yeah, you can see that this is not really paying off, even when Red is using just the extra country units, skirmishers here, so not ideal. And yet again we see probably no blue army at all, and he is also switching into elephants. Okay, so he's switching basically into tanks number 2. Yeah, also elite already. So that's an interesting switch, and might be quite interesting idea from them. So let's see if this is going to pay off. He's having obviously a lot of castles somewhere. One castle here, second castle here, third here, a bit of an idle elephant here, but still it's quite a long ways away from the battlefield, but it could really be a pretty strong meat shield against all those archers. You can see that they are surviving quite a lot longer than the paladins, obviously, and the combination of paladins with the elephants is really paying off, especially with the pretty huge arrow shield from the siege rams and a pretty huge amount of them in the first place. So it seems like goodbye castles at this point, I would be saying, so I don't really see how Just Grey can actually deal with this, because I don't see anything from yellow so far. Oh, he's actually at the very bottom here, fighting to protect the gold trade route, but that's pretty much it, because you can see that GGs are being called, as the bottom is slowly but surely being lost by foxes, whereas the top is very convincingly lost, because the teal player is having none castles, just the one in the middle of the map, and that's another situation that you want to find yourself in as a Mongol. So pretty good game overall on the Arabia, and ByTs are tying the match at 1-1. So yep, pretty good job, and you can even see a bit of an attempt at raiding at the trade route here as well. So good job overall by absolutely everyone. Very nicely played. So let's have a look at the achievements in the meantime here, with Tatoch yet again being the MVP. And then Monaimon also having a pretty good score from BYTs, and from Foxes, it's best for FN. Yeah, he was playing pretty well overall, and Ivan as well. Yeah, they were fighting quite nice battles. And actually, Menotti wasn't half bad either. So it seems like that only Mahori had some kind of hard game. But, well, yeah, that happens from time to time. That happens from time to time, and you can see that, yeah, this is not really ideal. 94 units killed, but losing 254. But it was basically because in the later game he was building just, or rather making scout cavalry, and that obviously dies like flies. So, yeah, that might have contributed to this pretty sad kind of ratio in here. The economy stats, a bit of a sling in here and there, not really anything substantial, especially when it was an hour-long game. That's something that happens. But Ivan really having a pretty good echo overall, especially in the gold department here. Well, alright then, that was a pretty nice closing game today. GG.